Thank you for joining ChristianPhotoshops.com. Today we're going to be doing a Photoshop tutorial, and this one is going to be for Easter, and this one is going to be kind of a surreal picture from inside of the tomb when the stone is being rolled away on Easter morning. And the Bible verse that we are going for in this one is Matthew 28:6. It says, "He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay." So this is going to be about Jesus rising from the dead, and the picture is going to be from inside of the tomb. And here is the finished product. It is taken from, or the picture is created from inside of the tomb where the stone is being rolled away and light is coming into the tomb. And we have a title called Risen with the Bible verse Matthew 28:6. So we've got all of our pictures ready and our canvas is open, so let's get started. Alright, we've got our canvas open, so we're ready to begin. Let me go and show you the pictures that we're going to be using for this Photoshop. We only need two pictures. First picture is a picture of a stone or just a close-up of a rock, and this is going to be the texture for the stone in front of the grave. And then we need a picture of a dirt for the ground texture. So I got this picture of dirt, and we may use that one, or we may use this one over here, which is kind of a picture of just kind of a rocky, rough texture. And we'll use one or both of them for the ground texture. So all you need, just a texture for the stone, and then a texture for the ground. So let's go and get started. Got our canvas open. I'm going to go ahead and fill this canvas to black. And on the new layer, I'm going to go ahead and draw a very quick sketch of what we're looking for. So the idea of this picture is going to be looking from inside of the tomb and to see the stone being rolled away and the light coming in through the doorway. So I'm kind of envisioning a doorway in the center of the picture, kind of like that. And then there's going to be the stone on the outside of the door, covering about half of the door. So there's our stone. And then when the stone is being rolled away, the light will be coming into the tomb. So we'll have kind of light kind of spilling into the tomb. And then we'll have some kind of light effects coming in through the outside. So that's a very rough sketch of what we're going to try to do. So let's go ahead and start creating everything. First thing we're going to do is create the stone. And all we need for that is this stone texture. So just take that, drag it to your canvas. And what we're going to do to make the stone, we're going to go to our selection tool, the elliptical selection, and we're going to hold down the Shift key and then drag a perfect circle in the stone and then copy and paste that out. So we have a circular selection of the stone. Next thing we're going to do is duplicate that. So you just drag it down to your new layer to duplicate it. So now you have two circle selections of the stone. The one on the bottom, we're going to rename that one to Stone Edge. And the one on the top we're going to rename to Stone Face. So click on the Stone Edge layer. So we have this circular layer behind it. I'm going to go ahead and overlay this one with red just so we can see it better. This is going to be the edge of the stone, and it's behind it. So what we're going to do this first. First thing I'm going to do is rotate it. Just kind of flip the stone horizontally. That way the same texture is not on the edge of the stone that will be on the face of the stone. So just kind of rotate it like that. I'm going to take off that color overlay. I'm going to change it more to a whitish, bluish overlay. And just change the opacity down to about 20%. On the stone edge, I'm going to create an adjustment layer. I'm going to go to Curves, clip it to the stone edge. When you have it clipped, I mean the only thing it adjusts is that particular layer. I'm going to increase the curves on the edge so it's a lot brighter on the edge than it is on the face. Okay, I'm going to click on the stone edge layer and I'm going to kind of distort the edge just a little bit because there's not going to be a perfect circular stone in this picture, so we're going to kind of just distort the edge a little bit. Kind of just take your control key and click on the corners and just drag it and just kind of make it a little bit off so it's not a perfect circle. Go up to your stone face layer. This is the one on the top. We're going to go to Edit, Transform, Warp, and then all we're going to do is just kind of move it around so it's not a perfect circle. So we can make the top a little bit skinnier and the bottom a little bit fatter, or however you want to create the stone. But the whole point of this is to make sure that the stone is not a perfect circle. So I think that looks good there. Go back to your stone edge and kind of fix that up just a little bit. Alright, another thing we're going to do, the stone could be left just like this, but what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of character to the stone. And how we're going to do that, we're going to start with the stone edge. I'm going to create a mask and not click on the mask. I'm actually going to click on the, actually we'll click on the mask, and then what we're going to do is go to your lasso tool, and then all we're going to do is just select out little indentions in the stone. So just take your lasso tool and just draw out little indentions, little cracks, little breaks in the stone. So just kind of breaking up that very smooth edge and just kind of bringing in a few cracks and just little pieces of character. So after you make your selection, so we have a selection right there. On your mask, make sure you use a brush with black and then just paint over those spots that you just selected. So just paint that out, and then you can go to select, deselect, and see the little cracks that we added in there. It just gives it a little bit more character. I'm going to go ahead and add a few more. So just select in a few imperfections in the stone. Alright, and then paint over your selection. Alright, so now our stone is not a nice smooth edge. It's actually got some cracks and everything in it. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the stone face. Create a mask, and then I'll just deselect the stone edge so we can see the stone face better. So just start painting, or not painting, but start selecting out just some little cracks and indentions and imperfections in the stone. And then on your mask, paint over your selection with black. Deselect, and we'll do one more set. Maybe make kind of some sharp cracks in here. Just kind of some, like the rock has been chipped off. Alright, and paint over it. Alright, and let's back out. And there's our stone for the most part. And I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. We're going to call this stone. and we're going to put all of the stone layers into that group. And now we have our stone. So this is ready. We're just going to leave this to the side real quick. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to create the door. To create the door, I'm going to go to my rectangular select tool. And I'm going to just draw a very quick, almost a square outline. And then I'm going to go to my select tool again. I'm going to click the elliptical one. And make sure your selection is up here so you're adding to the selection and not creating a new one. And then just draw a circle or kind of an oval. And we're going to draw it right on top of the square. And that adds to it. And now we have a nice doorway. So with the door like that, I'm going to go ahead and fill that selection with white. And deselect. And we're going to rename this layer to doorway. So we have our doorway. We can make it fatter, taller, bigger, smaller. So we can just move that however we want to. According to our sketch that we drew earlier, we have the door about right there. And so what I want to do is maybe make this door a little bit wider and a little bit smaller. Okay. And then finally, I'm going to take, let's get rid of the stone. I'm going to take the circular elliptical tool, draw a circle kind of over top of this doorway, kind of like that. I'm going to fill with that with white as well. And then I'm going to erase part of that circle that shouldn't be there. So pretty much that part right there. Okay, so we have two doorways here that we could use, and you can kind of select which one you like better. We have kind of a circular one or kind of a more of a rectangular one. And what I'm going to do is, I think I like the circular one better, so I'm going to leave that right there and just kind of squeeze it like that. And let's put this right in the front. Alright, and last thing I want to do to just kind of adjust this door one more way is take the rectangular selection tool and draw a rectangle pretty much the last half of this little circle that we created. And then fill that with white. And let's zoom in just a little bit. And we've got a door. Okay, so you could either use either doorway. You could use this one right here, or you could use this one. Either one would work fine for this. I think we're going to use the second one though that we made. So let's go ahead and change that to doorway. And we'll hold on to the other doorway in case we want to use that one later. Alright, so we have our doorway. We have our stone. We need to make the stone a lot smaller in size. So just select on the entire group and make it smaller. and we're going to drag the stone group above the doorway. And the stone's probably going to go about right there, maybe even a little bit smaller. Okay, about right there. That's about halfway uncovering the door. All right, to get rid of this, the stone is going to be on the outside of the door, and we're in the inside looking outside. So part of the stone needs to be erased. How we're going to do that is to select the doorway. So all you have to do is do Control and then click the actual layer. So just Control, click the doorway. Then click on your stone group and hit the mask button. And what that does is it erases everything outside of that selection. So we got our stone there, and it's in the right spot. You can see right here under the edge of the door is there's a little bit of a gap there. So what we're going to try to do is redo this. Let's move the stone up just a little bit. There we go. That looks a little bit better. So the stone is actually on the edge of the door there. And so we do have that little bit of light gap that we'll worry about in just a minute. All right, so we have our stone there. Let's click into our stone layer. Since the light source is on the outside of the stone, the inside of the stone would obviously be silhouetted. So we're going to click on the stone face, click on your adjustment layers, go to solid color, and we're going to change it to black. So our inside of our stone layer is completely black. We want to tone that down just a little bit, so maybe about 80% or so, maybe about 70%. Zoom in. And now on that color layer that you just created, we're going to kind of erase parts of the color layer. I'm going to use a brush, a grunge brush for this one. So it's just a paint splatter brush. Okay. And then I'm just going to very lightly paint on the edge here, so it kind of looks like some light is starting to leak in. Alright, that looks pretty good right there. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start working on the light rays. So what we're going to do is go to our polygon lasso tool, create a layer above everything else, and we're going to draw out where the light would be hitting the inside of the cave. So what we're going to do is just very carefully start drawing with the lasso tool, or the polygon tool. Just draw a very general outline. Just a very general outline of where the light would be coming in to the cave. So about right there. And then for the corner over here, would probably look something like that. Okay, fill that with white. So that is pretty much a very rough estimate of where the light's going to be coming in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our ground layer, or our rock texture. We're going to paste it above that, and then we're going to clip it to that light layer we just drew. So just move your stone texture into that shape that we just drew. You're probably going to have to zoom out a little bit. Make it into kind of a trapezoidal picture, and that way it'll give the perspective of more of a flat surface. Okay, that looks good there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and crop the image. Alright, before we crop the image, let's fix this. Alright, so we have our texture inside the cave, and that's where the light would be hitting the texture. Let's go to our adjustment layers, go to curves. We're going to make it very dark, almost black. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a black brush and then paint out the very top of that curve. So we're going to make the very beginning part, the entrance of the cave, we're going to make that more of a lighter color, which will signify where the light is coming in. Okay, we'll create another curve layer right on top of it. Make it very bright. Then invert your mask and then paint on it with white at the very front part of the cave entrance. Okay. Alright, that looks good. Now actually go to the ground texture, click a mask, create your mask layer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start erasing part of the actual texture. So go up here to the top. Before we do that, let's kind of crop, let's make sure the shape fits a little bit better. So about right there. Okay, that'll work. Alright, go to your mask layer, onto the texture, black brush, and then start erasing very lightly the edge where the surface actually meets the door. Same thing over here. And we're going to have to go down here to our secondary layer and just very lightly erase the parts that need to be erased. Okay, got a small mess up over here, so we're going to go ahead and fix this. That looks good. Let's zoom in and make sure all of our details are right. Sure we delete this right here. Then go to your texture. Smooth this out right here. Alright, that looks good so far. Alright, now let's go to the layer that we actually drew the light on. So the layer that we drew this white shape here on, and we're actually going to add to the layer. So what we're going to do is get a large brush, maybe about 50% opacity, and then all you're going to do is just draw on the edges of that layer. So what this is going to create is kind of light spilling off into the shadows. So you wouldn't have that really hard shadow. So we're just going to kind of fine tune that shadow right there. Okay. Then once you have that like that, change your opacity even lower and your brush even larger. And then off here in the corners, we're going to paint just a little bit of detail. Then finally change your opacity down to about 8 or 9% and just paint over the edges one more time just to make it nice and smooth. Alright, that looks pretty good. I'm going to go to the rock layer and make it a little bit darker. So go to your stone layer, go to your stone face, and let's do another solid color overlay in black and tone it down just a little bit, maybe to about 80% or so. And then with a very low opacity brush, let's paint the edges just like we did earlier. Kind of bring in some light to the edges of this face of the boulder. Okay, so that creates a little bit more of a silhouette look, which would be more appropriate for how the light is coming in. Okay, there's a small white line that comes from the door, and that shouldn't be there. So we're going to go to our doorway, create a mask, and just paint over the doorway so that line isn't there. Okay, that looks good right there. And then maybe even right here where the stone is touching, there shouldn't be any light coming from under there, so maybe just erase part of the door right there too. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start working on the bright white lights coming through. So go make a layer on the very top above everything else. Go to your gradient tool, go to your transparent, go to foreground to transparent, and we're probably going to change our color to just a light blue, like a sky blue color. Make sure it's on radial and just paint a nice bright light right over top of the stone. So there you go, just like that, and then change your blending mode to screen. Let's tone that down just a little bit. Okay, make another layer on top of that one. Let's change your color just a little bit more green, and then make a small circle right there. Then screen it again. Change your opacity down just a little bit. Alright, and then make a layer above that. Go to your brush tool, use a large white brush, or a large soft brush, and change your blue, a little bit darker blue. Go to blending mode and do color, and just change your opacity down to about 80%, and then just start painting a bluish color right at the beginning of the entrance. Okay, that looks good. And we're going to tone that down a little bit, so just create a mask and just tone down. The further you get into the cave, the less blue it's going to be. So just kind of tone that down just a little bit. Okay, looks good. So next thing we're going to do, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go and fine tune this shadow right here. There's too much light coming in through right here. So while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and go to my shape layer for the ground. And all I'm going to do is just kind of fine tune this shape layer so there's less light coming in. Okay, that would probably be a little bit more accurate, and then what I'll do is I will paint some of that back to make it blend a little bit better. Alright, that looks a little bit better. The light's a little bit smaller right there at the entrance. Alright, next thing we're going to do, go to the very top, create a black layer, fill it with black, and then go to Filter, Render, Lens Flare, do your 105 millimeter prime, change your brightness to about 125 or so, and put it pretty much in the center of the picture. Change it to screen, and we didn't get it right. We need the lens flare to be pretty much right there on the edge of the rock. So all we're going to do, just go to Render, try it again. Not quite as bright. Let's see how that looks. Oh, almost there. Alright, that looks good right there. It's extremely bright, but that's what we want. Let's go these blue layers right here and see if we can tone it down just a little bit. Okay, let's make a black layer again. Let's change that lens flare not quite as bright. Let's go down to about 100% or so. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And another thing you could do, if you wanted to move the lens flare around, you could go to lens flare, make it even smaller, like 80%, change it to screen, and then all we got to do is slide it right over top where we want it. Change the mask and invert it, and then we're going to paint the lens flare black with white. Just use a large white brush and just paint the lens flare back where it should be. Okay, I'm going to change it to a different color. And the way to do that is just to create an adjustment layer above your lens flare. Go to Hue and Saturation, click Colorize. And then we're going to do kind of just a greenish bluish color. So this is before and this is after. And let's go ahead and click that coloring layer back on for the ground. So the ground is nice and blue. And we'll go ahead and change, I think the ground is a lot brighter than it should be. So we're going to go to your ground layer, go to solid color, change it to black, bring your opacity down. About like that. And then just erase part of that black layer right at the edge of where the door is. Alright, we're pretty much at the end of this Photoshop, but what we're going to do is just a couple more adjustments. Add a new layer to the top of everything. I'm going to use a brush, and this is a sunbeam brush. Change it to a really light blue color. And so this is a brush you can find online. It's just a sunbeam brush, so it's just kind of a sunburst picture. I'm going to make it very large. I'm going to put it right where my lens flare was. Just like that. I'm going to change my blend mode to screen. Then I'm going to blur it, do Gaussian blur, and we're going to do a very large blur. This looks like it's going to be, we're going to do 78 for this blur. Change your opacity down. I'm going to do about 15 to 20% opacity. Then create a mask. Just like create a mask, invert the mask, and then we're going to paint that blur back, but we're only going to paint it back on the right side of the screen. The left side would not have these rays coming through, so we're just going to paint it on the right side of the screen. Alright, so those are our nice blurry light rays coming through. Okay, and now what we're going to do, create a new layer on top of that. and we're going to make another kind of light burst. We're going to do this one in Photoshop. Go to your gradient tool, pick any color, change your gradient type from solid to noise, and change your roughness from 50% to 100%, and then click the angle gradient and draw it right on top of your lens flare. Angle gradient, top of the lens flare, and you get this kind of sunburst effect like that. Change it to black and white, do overlay, and then we're going to blur this one as well. So blur it. We're not going to quite do 80% again, but let's do about 30 to 40% here. Alright, create a layer mask, invert it, change your opacity a little bit lower, and then we're just going to paint out little lens flares. Little sunbursts. Just like that, looks good. Maybe just a couple over here. Change your opacity down pretty low. And we can actually do screen for this one. Opacity about 25%. Alright, let's go ahead and add one more lens flare. Create a new layer. Fill it to black. Go to render, lens flare. And let's do 50 to 300 this time. Let's make it fairly small, about 60 to 70%. Screen it, and then just move it over top of your other lens flare. But then let's change the opacity to this one a lot lower. So just a very subtle lens flare effect. I want to go ahead and adjust the stone just a little bit. There's a round section, a very smooth section that I did not see earlier. So same thing we did earlier. Just use your lasso tool. Just kind of make some indentions right in here. Okay, that looks good. And same thing for the edge underneath it. Alright, one or two more quick adjustments we can do, and then we'll go ahead and start working on coloring, and then we'll be done. I'm going to select all of my ground layers, which I think that might be all of it, and then I'm going to flatten it just a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. Alright, just like that. And then I'm going to crop it so we're a little bit more narrow of an image. A little bit, rather a little bit wider of an image. A little bit more of a panorama style image. And what we're going to go and do now is we're going to go ahead and flatten the image. And this is a great time to go ahead and save so you don't lose all your layers. Let's go ahead and flatten the image. And I'm going to create a gradient map. And we're going to do a black, kind of a light greenish color, greenish blue color. Go to soft light for your blending mode and tone it down just a little bit. It's about 65%. So that's before and after. Just adds a little bit of contrast. Duplicate your brown background layer. Go to the top, go to filter, other, high pass, and we'll do about 3 pixels for this one. Change it to overlay. Go ahead and flatten the image again. And we're going to rotate it just a little bit so it's a little bit more level. There we go. And we can go ahead and start adding text. So, or you could just leave it like this. But I'm going to go ahead and add a little text layer. And we'll call this one Risen. So I'm just going to make a title. Do this in capital letters. And let's do this font right here. Okay. We'll call it Risen. I'll put it right here. You can put it anywhere you want, but I'll put it right here. And I've got it in a black font, and we'll just go to our blending mode and change it to overlay. And actually, let's put it right here in the top right. And this Bible verse is about the verse Matthew 28:6. He is not here, he is risen. So we'll go ahead and add that reference right below it. So Matthew 28:6. Change it to overlay. And then we'll make it much smaller. And we'll put it right there. Let's see, we might change that font. I don't like that. We'll change it to, that looks good. Alright, so I think we have a completed Photoshop. Let's zoom out and look how it looks. Alright, that looks good. This is a kind of a surreal picture of inside of the tomb when the stone is being rolled away on Easter morning. So we've got the title Risen, and we've got the Bible verse Matthew 28:6, which says he is not here, he is risen. And so I hope you enjoyed this Photoshop, and if you have any questions, please contact us, and thank you for coming to ChristianPhotoshops.com.